you've grown up over a butcher's shop just a stone's throw from Wolverhampton Wanderers, one of England's most famous clubs, it's inevitable that your boyhood dreams involve football. For Jack Taylor, this dream would take him on an unusual journey.
I always thought I was a good player, which every kid does. I mean, to get on the books, you clean the passageways and clean the corridors, and that was what you got, hoping that you would make it.
Jack's career went no further than a brief spell with non-league Wolverhampton Town, but as one door closes, another opens.
Somebody said, "Why don't you start refereeing?" And I said, "Referees are very funny people, aren't they? You've got to be funny to be a referee." And they said, "Well, no," and it went on from there.
He first blew a whistle at 17 and carried on doing so for 33 years. In that time, he took charge of over 1,000 matches, including 100 internationals, and he officiated in over 60 different countries.
The FA would ring me and say, "We've got a match in Brazil. Are you all right?" So because I was available, I was getting a lot of matches when I was quite young. I was comparatively young to get the cup final. It was young in those days. You didn't get the cup final till you nearly finished. So from then on, I was very, very lucky.
With the FA Cup final under his belt, he went on to take charge of the European Cup final in 1971. And then, in 1974, was selected to be the man in the middle at the most important match of them all.
To get the World Cup final is the absolute ultimate. It is the mecca of all football. So to get that, you feel very privileged, very honoured, and in my case, satisfied.
But things didn't start well. Rather unexpectedly, he was forced to delay the kick-off.
To my total misbelief, I couldn't believe there were no corner flags. So if the embarrassment of this little guy coming round with the corner flags, it was something you'll never forget.
The final was, of course, West Germany versus the Netherlands, Beckenbauer versus Cruyff, the European champions versus the pioneers of total football. It was a match with all the ingredients to be a truly classic encounter, and it didn't disappoint.
It was a match you almost sensed things were going to happen.
A minute into proceedings, Jack's senses were proved to be correct. Cruyff, on one of his traditional mazy runs, stormed into the German penalty area, and Taylor was left with no option other than to award the first ever penalty in a World Cup final.
So the first thing was the German goalie fetching the ball out of the back of the net. Looking back, and it's easy looking back so many things, that it did Holland much good.
The Germans regrouped and soon had the chance for an equaliser. It was another penalty, this one more controversial, awarded in the 25th minute. Wim Janssen's trip on Bernd Hansenbein has remained a major talking point ever since, but the Englishman remains resolute about his decision.
This may be referee talk, but in my opinion, a penalty is tripping or attempting to trip, and I still think that he attempted to trip.
Buoyed by their equaliser, the West Germans pushed for a second. Their efforts were rewarded just before half-time as Gerd Müller held his nerve to put the host nation ahead, much to the frustration of the Dutch captain.
As we were coming off, Cruyff comes up and he's arguing. He's arguing about a penalty. Well, I think that's what he was arguing about. My Dutch was not that good. So then I thought the yellow card.
Jack was making headlines with his first half performance and would continue to do so in the second half. First, he denied the Germans a third when he ruled Müller's effort offside. And with 5 minutes left on the clock, the Englishman once more courted controversy by waving away another penalty claim after Holzenbein went down in the Dutch area. When the final whistle blew, West Germany were crowned FIFA World Champions for a second time. The 74 final provokes huge debate to this day, but the man in black is more than happy about the part he played.
I thought and still do that I had a goodish game. There are people who'd argue. I think that people would argue about last night's referee, and they'll argue about any referee. But I was satisfied. I was very proud of my medal, which I've still got.
By the time of his retirement, Jack had overseen more major finals than any other referee. His impact on the game earned him an OBE and a place in FIFA's Hall of Fame. And with such invaluable experience, it's no surprise that he's still called upon today to offer his opinion on budding referees.
I have the little business of going around looking at younger referees. We have an assessor, and they do a good job, but it's quite nice to have the old guy around, maybe just to say, well, maybe things are not as bad or as good as you think they are.
Now 82, Jack's maintained a close relationship with his hometown club. At one point, he was their commercial director, but the local boy received his most emotional accolade when the club renamed the referees' room in his honour.
It gives me a great kick. At the end of it all, we've had some great players here, great players. And to come in there and see a referee named after that old referee, whatever you want to call him, yeah, gives me a great privilege. But they can't be bad. I must have done a bit of good in the world somewhere.